Hey folks, section 5.1. If you'll pull out your notes and go down to the second page, where we're going to be talking about interesting facts about functions and their inverses. There's 5 of these interesting facts. The first one is that a function has an inverse if it is one-to-one. In class, we will discuss what one-to-one means. Part of this interesting fact is the different notation. We know that the original function has always been called f of x. The way that you write the inverse notation is going to be f. It looks like a power of -1, but it is not. You would read that f inverse of x, f inverse of x. F of x and f inverse are going to be undo buttons of each other. Now I've placed a little image up here that kind of shows this, that these are undo buttons of each other. These two little gadgets are going to undo each other. That's what a function and an inverse function does. They undo each other. Interesting fact number 2. The domain of my original function is going to be the range of the inverse function. The domain of the original is going to be the range of the inverse. One of the ways that I like to think about this, remember that domain is always x values, range is y values. So it's as though, I'm sorry about that, it is as though my x value of the original is going to be the y value of the inverse. And I'm assuming you can probably guess what will be next. The range of the original is going to be the domain of the inverse. So the y value of the original is going to become the x value of the inverse. Number 3 interesting fact. If two functions, and we're going to call them f of x and g of x, if they are inverses of each other, then the following statement is going to be true. You've actually seen this before on a previous test. F of x, remember this is composition here, f of g of x will equal g of f of x. And if you find those two compositions, they will both equal the letter x. Interesting fact number 4. The coordinate xy of the original function f of x is going to become the coordinate yx of the inverse function. So the x and the y becomes the y and the x. And lastly, number 5, f of x and f inverse of x, the graphs are going to be symmetric about the line y equals x. Now you remember y equals x was back in chapter 2, and this was our identity function. And the identity function was the line that cut the first quadrant and the third quadrant exactly in half. So my function and my inverse function are going to use that line that I just drew as a mirror. They will be symmetric about that line.